We're coming here live, and I got a little. I'm excited. I'm excited because we made it through, almost last class. But I didn't know how it would go. You never know how a program's going to go if you're doing it live. You think you have an idea. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prep this, and day one will be this, and you kind of think people will like it, but you don't know until you actually do it. So far, the feedback has been just incredible. Thank you for all the feedback, which reminds me, I actually have not set a little link for the Facebook thing. So what I'm going to do, as I'm doing this, as I'm doing the intro and trying to be distracted, tell me how you, so far, share with me, for those of you who've been on, whether you've been attending live or watching the recordings, give me your number one top kind of aha right now. Like, the goal is always for you to have multiple ahas and breakthroughs and say, okay, this was definitely worth me investing my time, my money, all of this attention. But I'm hoping that there's at least, like, what's the one thing that you're like, okay, this really kind of shook the way I think about business, and maybe it's completely different than what you thought. And it can be something like a different direction or a different product you want to do, or a hook of the product, or a way you're going to create something, but just something that is completely different than what you imagined it would be. Just type it in there. I'm curious to see where you are and what your breakthrough was, because it's challenging creating a program to reach so many different people that want to do different things, different markets, different marketing backgrounds. So I saved this page. Let me see if everything's working on the back. But just share, if you're on here live, just share below that thing. Like, what's that one thing? And let's see where everyone is. Okay. We've got the focus on traffic generation. Good. Okay. Deadline for courses with no deadline. Yeah, deadlines are biggies. The simplicity. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I know. This could be simple. We overcomplicate it ourselves, and we hear from other people who teach marketing who make it much more complicated. And the reason they make it complicated is because they want you to pay them to learn how to implement it or to do it for them. Good. Eddie said first traffic and not the site. Yes, absolutely. Another one for simplicity. Traffic, landing page, cart, done. That's it. Yeah, that really is it. Like, that's the whole business in a nutshell. And just keeping everything simple. You don't need a complex cart. You don't need a complex page. You don't need a complex traffic strategy. Absolute clarity on exactly what to do throughout all I have seen. Awesome, Jeff. Simplicity, like Italian food. Chris and Susan confirm we're on the right track and keeping it simple. Another one for simplicity. Oh, this was a good one. The 30-minute, the short little mini videos. Yeah. Now we repeat with deadline being in the key. Throwing a bunch of topics on social media to scope out your audience. Don't get stuck in generic niches. Breaking down each result into short bite courses. Perfect. Yep, more simplicity. The start before the start. Good. I'm glad you picked up on that, Bill. It's like getting all your ducks in a row before we even begin building things. Lonnie with the simplicity. So, a lot of big takeaways. So today, let me get our presentation ready here. We're going to do some growth strategies. Like, what do we do when things are starting to work? Thinking about this from a growth perspective, and then wrapping it up with some of the, like, just big, juicy lessons I've learned over a couple decades of doing this online. No particular order, just I was writing down and brainstorming, like, here is a bunch of things, and I was looking at feedback, and Neil had messaged me, and some people messaged me, like, here are some things to think about. So just a bunch of, like, things that didn't necessarily fit in a particular part of the 9 days, but things that can add value. So, quick recap of where we are. We started with the compass, right? Figuring out the start. Before the start, we had the little 30-day mini challenges, choosing your role, and are you going to be an expert, a curator? Like, what's your thing? Where are you going to stand in this market? And maybe it's a combo. The concept of the flywheel, everything down on one page and knowing exactly what you're going to focus on in the 3-hour day. Traffic first, not building out a website, spending 6 months saying, now what? Creating your brand. What's the vibe? What's the feel you're going for? Your flagship product. And for the purpose of this program, it was about that day-specific program with start and stop. Then the funnel. That funnel, remember the upsell, selling more days. And then stacking it with more products. And then yesterday's class was the simplified version of tech and just rolling this out and making sales. And again, the whole business fits on this one page. What's your front end? Free traffic. Hopefully you know that, whether this can be free or paid. And if it's free or paid, what are the platforms? Where are you going to be? Then where you send it to in the front. This course focused on a low-cost front-end flagship. There are other ways you can do it, right? There's getting them to an email opt-in and then selling them on the back end, and you can absolutely do that. But when I started building out this program, it would make this way too big and way too confusing, and you're like, oh my God, now which should I build? You start kind of going off in 100 different directions. I just wanted to make one thing focused on one specific strategy that I know works. And it's easier, even though it might cost you more if you're doing traffic to make a sale, you're going to get better customers, and there's less mechanics behind it. There's less like trying to email and upsell and all these other things. Then we talked about email, right, and getting them in, and then that little mini rollout we talked about yesterday, and then essentially you take whatever profit you want, you take some off the table, or you put it back into your business, you put it all back in, and then you roll it back into either more traffic or better content or more product creation, and you keep it going. So by now, hopefully, even if you feel kind of slightly overwhelmed, at least you're feeling confident knowing I have the strategy. Like, this is what I need to do. And all of the other stuff, the little tiny tactics and nuances and stuff, that's all stuff you can figure out. And that's all stuff that changes. Because what I was doing for traffic 25 years ago is different than what I'm doing now. The strategy is the same, but the tactics are different. So I don't want you to get caught up in the shiny traffic object syndrome. Hey, here's this new platform, here's how to grow on this thing, and all of a sudden you're distracted, and then you're leaving behind your main traffic system. If you're doing well, wherever it is, on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, and you're getting traction, it's starting to grow, and a new platform comes up, don't drop what's working and then put everything on that. It's the strategy behind it, okay? So hopefully you're feeling good, you're feeling confident, and I see some questions coming through. If I have time at the end, I'll answer questions. I know some of you most of you actually, who bought the Backstage Pass and upgraded. I gave the ability to do another 4 classes that's going to be just Q&A. So if you're in that, we're going to spend the whole 4 classes just Q&A, all of these questions you're going to have. Although if you didn't buy it, there's no, I'll see if I can offer it again at some point. But that's where we're going to do a lot of the Q&A. Because there's more stuff in here than I thought we'd have. So anyway, today we're going to tie it all up and put all the pieces together and get this thing going. So the first half is going to focus on some growth stuff. What do we do and how do we run this smoothly and thinking about growth from a strategic perspective, and then finish with just some big lessons. So starting with how to grow. I've mentioned this in one of the previous classes. There's the big word right now everyone talks about is scale. I want to scale, how do I scale? And scaling is very personal. It just depends on what you consider scaling and what your goals are. I do think we need to know our number. Like, what's the number you need where if you're hitting this every month, you're happy. You're like, I'm good, I got my bills paid, I'm putting money away. I don't need any more than that. So what is that number for you? You don't have to post it here because that's a personal thing unless you want to. But you should know, because what happens if you don't have the number, you feel like you're always missing something. You're like, oh man, I think if I had like 30 grand a month, that'd be good. And then you get to 30, you're like, no, I need 40. And you've probably experienced this. The more you make, the more you end up spending. It's part of life. It happens. So just know your numbers and know what your goals are. You don't have to be so rigid with it, but figure out what scaling means to you. And before I forget, I can't believe I forgot to light our candle. And as we're doing this, as we're kicking off into the final class, the records today, hopefully you can see that, we've got Springsteen, Born in the USA. And I don't know if you can see that on the bottom here. Run DMC, the first album. Love Run DMC. So we're doing we're mixing genres. I love all music, but DMC are just incredible. So in terms of growing, one way you can attack this is thinking of it in terms of improving conversions. Because if you're sending the same 1,000 people a day to your site, and 5 usually buy, and if you spend time to be able to convert, instead of 5, you get 7, or you get 10, you just doubled your revenue, your income, right? Without changing traffic. So I'm not saying this is the most important thing now, because the most important thing is getting the traffic and getting eyeballs and starting to make some sales. Then you start to tweak conversions. But we've got to think about, what does a conversion look like? And the conversion is going to come down to what your social messaging, your email, and your sales page, because your traffic is really what's going to do that heavy lifting. So here's my 2-minute version on social media marketing. And I taught this in a class called Social with Soul. So here's the simple breakdown of my method. Like, this is my traffic method. And everyone has different social media ways they communicate. But in general, you want to go where they are, and you want to be consistent and prolific. That's it. What you say, what you do, it's going to differ a little bit, whether you use video, whether 3-minute videos are hot now or 30-second, that all changes. But you have to be where they are, and you have to be consistent and prolific. If you're reaching 70-year-old people, and it's about like retirement and Roth IRAs, and like all that, the IRAs, like all that stuff, and you're like, well, I think I'm going to just obsess over TikTok. That's a mismatch, right? Because your people, are there going to be some? Yeah, there going to be some there, but that's not really where they are. So you have to be where they are. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You could have the best messaging, you're not going to reach them. And then consistency and being prolific. And I'm going to say this, and some people might agree, some might not, but I think if you're going to do it, like if you're going on a platform, you got to go every day. You really do. I know some people have this strategy of, well, if it's going to be a YouTube video, do once a week and do a really good one. I think in order to reach out and try different hooks and reach as many people as possible, I am more of a just go daily and put a lot of stuff out there, a lot of messages. Some are going to hit, some are going to miss, but that's my recommendation. And a mistake I made wasn't doing it enough. Now, if you're doing social, and I blurred out his thing because I don't want to, I don't want to bust him, but there's a guy that I know, and he took a picture of himself, like just with that, like a fake pose, like someone took a picture of him. One color I've never worn much of is green, but I'm starting to see that changing. And the reality is no one cares. We don't care. And you're just trying to get likes, you're trying to get that little shot of adrenaline, but if you're doing it to show off, that's one thing, but if you're actually doing it from any type of marketing, it doesn't do anything. The likes do not correlate to sales to clicks. No one's like, oh my God, you look great in green, I'm going to go join your program. So, your social, I've put them into 3 different categories. And I love alliteration, so we're going to go L. Okay? So 3 different L categories. Number 1, and your social, in some way, shape, or form, should touch on one of the 3. One of the 3 L's. It could have 2, it could have all 3. It doesn't have to, but it should have at least 1. Learn. Is there something you're teaching? Is there something educational? Is it a top 10 ways to flip a house? Top 10 ways to get a date? 3 ways to get more water. Is it a learning, educational thing? Here's my favorite hamstring stretching exercise. So, is it something you're teaching? Now, what I don't think it should be is every single post just teaching, because then that gets a little boring, and you're not showing some of the human side and other texture that make you a well-rounded person, and someone who's like, all right, I like this person and their vibe, versus just throwing out pieces of content. You've probably seen some people who just throw content after content, but you don't know them at all, and then then you're just playing I'm trying to out-content everybody, and you're not saying anything different. So is there a learn aspect? Laugh, and that's my word for, I don't necessarily mean getting a laugh, but entertainment. Is it entertaining in some way, shape, or form? So it could be a meme, it could be something that's funny, it could be something that's thoughtful, nostalgic, romantic, but self-deprecating. If you're going to use humor, by the way, I suggest you use self-deprecating humor. Don't make fun of other people. I'm in a couple of these like 80s groups, and I see, and people are so mean. Like, they'll show a picture of what Axl Rose looks like now. Like, oh, it looks like my old grandma. I'm like, what? Like, why are you making fun of the way people look? I don't get that. So please don't make fun of other people's looks, because that makes you look bitter and petty, and that's not an attractive thing. So don't make fun of other people's looks. It's really not a good social media tactic. That's not a good thing to do as a human being. But if you're going to make fun of someone, make fun of yourself. That's okay. But I would say entertainment is an often underused thing, especially business stuff. We focus all on the entertainment, and we focus all on the education, and we forget about the entertainment aspect. So I like mixing it up, and I like doing, like in our Facebook group, I do, what's your favorite Billy Joel song? Like, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's light. Don't copy my stuff. Do it in your vibe, in your niche, and whatever it is you want to talk about. But do something that does entertain in some way, shape, or form. And then the final L is lifting them up, inspiring. Does it empower? Does it motivate? Does it get people like, yes, that's my girl or that's my guy? So instead of you saying, hey, what do you think of this new sweater? Maybe you have a stain on it and be like, I was just changing my daughter. I got a stain on it. That's what happens, but here's what you can do. And then you could turn it into a lesson or something empowering or lifting them up. You could, instead of just making it about yourself, or don't I look cute in this, or look how good I look, or, oh, walking on the river thinking about my thoughts. I've said it before and I'll say it again. No one cares. We don't care. And when you really start to look at social media through this lens, you start to realize how shallow and vapid and how much fluff there is, and why everyone just kind of blends in. And also a lot of negativity. So the world does feel heavy. So you need to be the light. Lift, laugh, learn. One of the 3. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more perspective on just things to think about, not just social media, but email as well, and all of your messaging. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, and show your flaws. Don't act like everything's perfect. If you screw up, admit it. Say, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. It's okay. Like, you're going to be fine, and people appreciate it. Don't make every post negative, and all you do is talk about your failures, because that's pretty friggin' depressing. And I don't want to follow someone who fails all the time. So, just talk about your wins, but share your losses as well. That makes you more real and human. And always, 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 somehow, some way, shape, or form, bring things back to them, not you. It's, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm watching, and here's what I think is cool for you, or here's a lesson for you, or you might like this, or what do you think? Make it a question. Hey, I'm watching this thing. I just watched this movie. What do you think? What are you watching? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I drink, I try to drink 5 waters a day, but I only get 2 in. What about you? Instead of, water's the greatest thing. You need to drink 8 glasses a day, and be so preachy. And it's funny because I was doing some of this other stuff that I'm going to share, and Hormozi said it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I think that's why it works, is the idea of, instead of preaching and saying, here's what you need to do, and I instinctively have done this, and maybe you do as well, or maybe you don't, but here's what I tried. It worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Like, I have this cool recipe on how I make salmon in the microwave in 3 minutes. I like it. Works for me. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe not, but that's cool. And I used to do that. It was disarming when I created ads for my greens company. This is what we have. This is, fresh juice is better. Yeah, but this works, and maybe you'll like it too. But bring it back to them. In the class, in my social media class that I taught, I told people to show me some of their stuff they did. And I blocked out her name, but I wanted to show, and I highlighted it, that, and I wasn't showing this to pick on her, but I just want to show you what we all tend to do. I circled every time she said I, me, my, or myself. And if you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 references in 3 paragraphs about herself. Now, she ended it well, right? What are you protecting yourself from? How are you acting as your own security guard? But the whole entire thing was about her. And I'm saying, when you are writing a post or you're writing an email, every time you use the word I, think about how you can switch it and make it a you. How can you switch it over? Okay? It's important. Here's a little traffic bonus. Leave positive comments on other people's profiles. They see it. You think even if they're busy or they're well known, they don't know who's commenting. And they don't see and they're not paying attention. They do. It does a few things. And if this was your only traffic strategy, probably not enough, but it's going to build good relationships. But being truthful with your positive comments. If you find someone shady and you're doing a positive comment just because you think they have good pull, that's not right. But be honest. Like, I know that some of the people on here right now, Anila, Lonnie, Pete, Mike Goodrich, like, I see you guys leaving positive comments all the time. I see it. So if Lonnie's been leaving a lot of positive comments, and then she asks for something, asks for a favor, or says, Ryan, could you just take a look at this, or what do you think of this? Do you think I'm much more apt to answer her versus someone who never says a word publicly, only says, can I pick your brain, and just wants to take? So I question you, I challenge you to do this more. Be the friggin' light. And if someone says something and you're like, oh, that's cool, get on there and say, you know what, that's a great point, I agree, I love it. Don't be argumentative. Don't be that friend who only pops up to point out how they're wrong, because you're annoying. And we don't like that. So, my challenge for you, this is like a challenge within a challenge, is 3 a day. Can you commit to doing 3 positive comments a day on other people's things? And before you say yes, I'm going to ask you this yes or no question. Or, it's not a yes or no question, give me a time frame. When was the last time you left positive comments on someone else's social media? Whatever platform, whether it was a YouTube comment or Facebook or Instagram or wherever it was, LinkedIn, Twitter. When was the last time you went out of your way and you left something positive, a positive comment, a testimonial, attaboy, attagirl, love it, keep going, you look great? When? Just type it in. When was the last time do you think? And I'm not doing this to call you out. I'm just curious. And Ken Reedy's posting. I'm sure Ken does 10 a day. Scott Colby is another one who leaves a lot of positive comments. This is great. And if you haven't done it in a while, if you're like, it's been months, that's okay. Change it. Like say, okay, I'm committing to do this. And watch what happens. And you also stay top of mind with people. Because as your business grows and as your influence grows, more people come into your world. And you want to help and serve as many people as possible. But it becomes harder. And I've been doing this for so long. I have so many people in my Rolodex and so many contacts. And you lose touch with people if you're not constantly keeping in touch. But at least leaving comments can keep you in their orbit. So I like that so many of you were saying a week ago, not a week ago, one person, Thomas, not calling you out, said a week ago. But a lot of you were saying within the past 24 hours or today. So yeah, what this question was meaning you should post and comment daily. Yes, absolutely. Even if you're running out of time, and it's just someone says something that you agree with, you're like, amen, you got it, I agree. The positive comments really, it's just such a good thing to do, and it does get you on people's radar. It does. It's a very simple way to build relationships and give. So that was social media. That was like everything you need to know about social media in a nutshell. But email is such an important part. And I've done email courses that have been a month and 6-week courses. So I'm going to take the best of the best of the best and deliver what I think are the 7 or 8 biggest levers you can pull in email, that even if you don't go through my more extensive courses, email courses, over the next 5 minutes, you implement this and you're going to see your email change. Okay? And what we'll do in our Facebook group, we'll do these challenges and let's hold each other accountable to post positive things and positive comments. Don't just be a lurker. Get active. That's what it's meant to be. Don't do it with such a hidden agenda where you're like, great comment. Speaking of that, in my course, I go over that in detail because that's going to get you banned. Don't do that. Just be honest. So, what's the best day and time to send email? If you've been through my courses, you're going to know this stuff. It doesn't matter. Consistency is the most important. So, if you usually send email Tuesday, Thursday at around 10 a.m. your time, send it Tuesday, Thursday around 10 a.m. your time. If you send it on Monday at 2 in the afternoon, and then Wednesday is midnight, Thursday is 3 in the morning, and then you don't send it again for 2 weeks, it's very inconsistent. People don't know. They don't know when it's coming. So having a set schedule and being consistent is more important than I should send it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Consistency is it. Write to one person. When you write email, it has to be just speaking to one person. I don't care if your list is 1 million people. One person reads it at a time. Right? You could have just hit send, it goes to 1 million people, but when I open it, I'm reading the email to me. So, avoiding things like, hi everyone, hey everybody, and for my southern friends, how y'all doing? The minute you say that, I know you're not speaking to me. Even though I know you're not writing it to me, I want to kind of believe you are, and it takes the personal out of it, and now all of a sudden, it's like a newsletter. I see this mistake made over and over and over again. And we get nervous because we're like, well, my list is 3,000 people, and you start freaking out. You're like, oh my God, 3,000 people are going to see it. But if you just think of it as one at a time, that's it. So instead of, hi everyone, hello my fellow real estate renegade. Hello my fellow marketing freak. Like just, you could open it like that if you want to address someone. Hello, my fellow hello, my fellow Billy Idol fan, whatever. So, speak to one person. Do not make that cardinal mistake of opening it with a hi everyone, how is everyone doing? And that's also pretty boring. You don't need to start everything with, hey everyone, how are y'all doing? How's everyone doing? Get to it. I'm busy. I don't have time. Just chit chat. I don't need chit chat. Let's get to this damn thing. Which brings me to your tone. And your tone should not be that of a copywriter. Who else wants $1 million real estate cryptocurrency fund? That stuff, Rich Sheffer would say, you say that to someone and they're going to punch you in the face. Like, that's not how humans speak. So your tone should be, you're sitting with a friend at a coffee shop or a pub and you're having a conversation, and write how you speak. If you read my emails, which hopefully you do, you know it sounds exactly like how I speak now. It's the same voice, the same tone, the same stories, the same everything. So that's the vibe it should be. One person and you're talking to a friend. And I know some people say, well, who's your avatar? My avatar is a 38-year-old woman from Indiana with 2.5 kids and blah, blah, blah. You can't take, it's hard to write to that person because it's still not a real person. And I've taught this, and it's so powerful when you could really get this. When I say speak to one person, I mean right now, come up with one actual, real, living, breathing human being that you are like, this is my person. Someone who you actually know. Maybe you don't know them well, but you know who they are. And what I want you to do is write down, think about it for a second here. In the chat, write down their first name, not their last name. We don't want to reveal anyone, but write down their first name. You should have your ideal person. So for me, when I was running my greens company, my ideal person was Julie, and Julie's a friend, and she's 53, and she has 3 kids, and I know her kids well. I know her family, and when I would sit down and write, I would write to her. And it was so much easier to write because I knew exactly, what's going to resonate with her and what's going to work and the voice and the vibe and what to say and even pop culture references. Now, I know no list is that homogeneous where everyone's going to be the same age, the same everything. But at least you're aiming in a very, very specific direction. And when you do that, everything changes. It is it's so simple, but so powerful. And some of you are saying names here. Bonnie and Christina and Mark and either Eddie or Edie or Caroline. I want every one of you to do this right now. This is important. Write down their first name. Your absolute target. And if you're like, I have no idea anyone in this world, then there's a problem. Because if you don't know them, if you don't know at least one person in the world, how are you going to speak to them? How are you going to get them excited? How are you going to get them to the point where they say to you, oh my God, it's like you were reading my mind? That's what you want. And if you don't know who you're speaking to, you can't do it. And when you attack email from these generalities of like, it's a group, and there's a whole bunch of people, and I'm just writing this to everyone, and I'm trying to sell my stuff, that's when the message feels like, who is this? What's this for? All right, great friend Chris, and Clara, and Scott, and Dave, perfect. Now, for those of you playing along, congratulations. For those of you not, shame on you. Shame on you. I'm doing this for you, by the way. This isn't for me. So, for those of you who've actually written down a name, and or maybe if you can't write down a name because you're driving, whatever, how does it feel differently? Just from an idea of marketing, from an idea of social posting, from an idea of your email, just writing down someone's name, does it automatically start getting you a little bit more clear in your messaging? Sometimes you might say, oh my God, I was, like, Thomas says, Anthony's my guy, but it wasn't. But when I was writing, it wouldn't have resonated with Anthony because I was trying to do 100 things at once. This is one of the most powerful, most simple yet powerful things you can do with making your message resonate, is just that one person, but a real person. And it should help you become much more, as Jeff said, much more focused. Vicky said, much less intimidating. Yeah, it's incredible how many people say, I don't know what to write in email. I'm scared. I'm nervous. What if they don't know? But you do this, and it becomes human. You're just writing a letter to a friend. They said it feels totally different. I know what Bonnie likes, wants, needs, is interested, and wants me to create. Absolutely. Now you write your email to Bonnie, and all that fear goes away. Keep it short. Bonnie doesn't have time for your drivel. Bonnie's a busy lady. Keep it short. Paragraphs, a couple of lines, a one-line paragraph, a one-word paragraph, a two-word paragraph. Remember, it could be, depending on your market, it could be 50%, it could be 60%, it could be 80% of the people reading your email are reading on this. And when you type it in, if you write your email on a laptop or a desktop screen, and it's 6 paragraphs, it might be 6 lines, or 7 lines, or 8 lines. It might be 12 or 15 lines on a phone, which means they have to do a whole full scroll. If you open up an email and it's a whole screen is taken up with one paragraph, your brain says, oh my God, this is just too much to process right now. Like, I can't, I'm going to either delete it, I'm going to unsubscribe, or I'll read it later, which they never do. So it's got to be short, you got to jump right in and hit the ground running. Start with your CTA. CTA is your call to action, which means if you're going to write an email, I like to do the reverse. Instead of just writing and then seeing where it goes, the first thing I think of is, what's the action you want them to take? And depending on how your business shakes out and what products you're creating and what your monetization is, whether it's going to be an affiliate link or a sponsor link or your front-end course or your back-end course or a membership, or you want them to get on a coaching call, or you want them to fill out an application, whatever that is going to be, that's where you start. And you start with, okay, what's the action I want them to take? All right, well, I want them to buy this new $99 micro course I have. Cool. Okay, so I eventually need to get them there. So that's where you start. Okay, the story, whatever I'm going to be writing about, needs to kind of be at least somewhat related to this. I want them to buy my $50 self-guided meditation audio program. So I know in the back of my head, I somehow need to relate my story or email to that. I can't talk about what I had for lunch. Oh, and P.S., buy my meditation course. They're like, what? What are you talking about? It doesn't make it. There's no relation. So starting there at least puts you in the right direction of where you want to take this. You've got to know your finish line before you start writing. That's what's worked for me for all this time, because I know, like even today's email was about, this is the last class, it's closing, so I want to somehow work in the fact that Backstage Pass, right? Like that's what it was about. Look at that link. That link just showed up. RyanLeaf.com/backstage. But I knew that's where I wanted to get people. I wanted them to click on that so they can upgrade if they haven't. So that was where I framed it. Okay, that's where I'm starting. Now, how do we start? Like, where do I begin this email? I want them to get there. And I've recommended this for a long time, and I still do, because it gives you, it makes you kind of more in the now. So 3 prompting questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? Or what am I doing later? Or what am I doing tomorrow? And that alone can be the prompting for some type of story. Anything. Anything you've done, we can relate it. You have to go to the DMV later. Okay, you have to go to the DMV and you want to teach something about flipping houses. Oh man, I'm on my way. I have a 2 o'clock appointment with the DMV later today. I know it's going to be a 3-hour thing, but yet there's this new house I wanted to look at because it just came on foreclosure, and it's not starting. But thankfully it's not starting until 6 o'clock. Most of these happen later in the day, which is great for you. And then all of a sudden you could give a little story. You see how I did that? I just out of thin air. Instead of saying, okay, what am I going to write about? It just gets you kind of going. Hopefully that prompt helps. I did something recently on YouTube where I actually wrote an entire email in real time. Check out, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, do that. So you'll see it, and I'll do more of those as well. I like doing that exercise. Every email should always have something actionable, something take away. It can't just be a story, because then it's like eating a bag of Skittles and you're hungry 2 minutes later and you crash. So it can't just be self-serving story. There has to be some type of takeaway. Like today, write down one thing you're grateful for. Instead of just saying, I'm so grateful for this and for my family, for my health, whatever the story's going to be, but at least give them, hey, here's your thing, here's your takeaway, do this. Here's the moral of today. Here's what you should take away from today. Just like in my classes here, I want there to be takeaways. Like, if this was just fluff and story, and you don't have anything actionable to put into place, like even just that actionable tactic of writing down the name of the person you're going to actually write your email to is a tactic. So give people something they can walk away with, no matter what. In terms of the style of writing, I love this power of momentum and repeating a word and making it more like a song or a chorus where there's just this movement and this energy. So most people would write it like, you should always drink more water because it hydrates you and makes you look stronger and keeps you young and full, and it's all this stuff, right? And it's a long paragraph and it's kind of overstuffed and it feels a little bit heavy. Versus breaking it down, one lines, shorter. You should always drink water because it's hydrating, because it keeps you full, because it makes you look younger. Your English teacher would have a heart attack. But it works. It's so much easier to read and keeps you hurling towards the end of the email, which is where the call to action is. So don't be afraid to use repetition. Embrace repetition. Repetition is your friend. Use the words over and over again. But keep it short. But do you see the difference? What's easier to read? What gets you moving forward to the next line, and then to the next line, and eventually to the call to action? This one, or because it's hydrating? And I just made this up. Like, that's one example. If you're going to train for a marathon, make sure to run for 5 minutes, run fast, run hard, never stop running. I think I have to learn to write again, getting rid of corporate mumbo jumbo. Oh, I had one person who worked for me at one of my nutrition companies, and she was great, like really great worker, but she started writing. I said, okay, let's come up with an email to thank customers for writing, or like, we screwed up here. And it was so corporate. It was like, we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. I'm like, no! No! I don't remember where I heard the example, but I love it. It's like if you're at a restaurant with a friend and you spill hot soup on their lap. What are you going to say? Oh dear, I sincerely apologizing. I sincerely apologize for causing this. You'd be like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Are you okay? What can I do? How can I help? That's how you should write email. Not like you're writing an 8th grade essay or you're writing a corporate white paper. And just write. Jessica said I have trouble with blocks of text. I get it, but just I think you mean reading blocks of text. Yeah, we all do, right? But writing is just getting everything out there, and then you can edit and then re-edit and then re-edit. The more you write, the better you're going to get. That's it. It's a friggin' muscle, and it's unlearning both some of the grammar stuff. Now you should be a better speller than me, but it's unlearning a lot of that grammar stuff we were taught, and the way we was taught, whether it's in high school or college, and the way, and it's unlearning that. It's unlearning a lot of the copywriting, where it feels so sterile. You're like, all right, I know you're going to sell me something. Oh, that was really nice. Oh, that's Freedom Farm. That's got to be Dana. Ryan's nurse teaches amazing. Bravo. Simple. Thanks, Dana. I love doing this. I really love doing this. Although I am glad it's the ninth day. I'm glad we're done. Because it is a lot of work. It's not easy to get up and kind of get excited for this and keep the energy up, but it helps when you're doing something you love. And I want that for you. I want that. I so badly want that for you. I want you to just find that friggin' thing. I think when you market this way, with just your friggin' heart and soul, it's so much easier. You're not stressed about copy for months and every marketing thing and freaking out. Like, you're just like, I just want to help people. I want to do cool things. Here's what I'm doing. Do you want to come on? You want to play? You want to try this? Here's something else I'm trying. I'm going to pivot here a little bit. Let's go. You want to jump in this program? Great. No? Okay, cool. Maybe I'll get you on the next one. Just a more organic way to run your business. But thank you for those words, Dana. Sales letter. So, sales letter is, it's hard to write because there's so many ways you can go about it. There's some that are long stories. There are people that say it shouldn't be long or it should be short. Like, there's so many different methods. My letters tend to be more medium in length. They're not super long. They're not 40, 50 pages, but they're not one page. They tend to be sometimes 4 or 5 pages, like even the Backstage Pass is like probably 2-3 pages, but it's not a ton. I think they can work, the long ones, but we're getting to the point now where people are like, all right, like, can you just cut to it? So my main method for coming up with a sales letter, or a product for that matter, is actually writing your sales letter first. So actually sitting down and coming up with what you think the perfect product is. So if you are doing a product on how to raise your family, how to raise your kids in a toxin-free environment, but Lonnie would like that one. How to raise your family in a non-toxic environment. So instead of creating the product and then saying, okay, now I got to write the sales letter, flip it. Write the sales letter of what would be a perfect product. Okay, if it was in the perfect world, here's everything it would include. It would show, what during dinner and food and condiments and cleaning supplies and carpet and all of that, wallpaper, bedding, sheets, how often. So you sit and you write everything that you can imagine. You're like, where it is a no-brainer. A no-brainer. You at least get it on paper and you're like, okay, now let me create it. Right? Because people are going to see this first before your product anyway. So just that change shifts everything you're doing with marketing, with your positioning, with creating a no-brainer. People say, well, Ryan, how do you create a no-brainer? Because I sit down and create a no-brainer. I write it down. Even for this program, once this is done, like, now I've got to redo things, I'm going to add support, like, I'm going to do some stuff. and turn it into a course, right? But before I do the other things, like writing the letter and really saying, okay, this is what is going to make it work. Like, this is the thing. So what I suggest you do is find some pages you like. We call them swipe copy, and model them. And depending on the style and the type of product you want to do, it's unlimited who you could choose from. I caution you to just watch out for like the hyper aggressive marketing, how to make $1 million in your underwear type people, because that might work for a very, very specific market, the biz op people. And there's biz op people who jump from thing to thing, and they're in this thing. They do like warrior special. They do all this stuff. So unless you're in that kind of niche-y world, it doesn't always play outside of that. And if it does, you're often attracting the wrong people. You're attracting people who are desperate and who just are in the worst way possible, and they're attracted to like this get rich quick or lose 50 pounds in 2 days, and they're serial refunders. They tend to be. So I don't know if that's the type of business you want to run. I don't think it is. I don't think you'd be here if it is. So model people who are more upmarket in terms of the copy, especially if you're looking at the Facebook ads library and you're looking at Facebook ads. Those are going to be safer because Facebook won't, in general, some slip by, in general, will not approve. They don't want to approve the things that are really hypey and making crazy, idiotic promises. So it tends to be safer. And I remember I spoke at an event at my buddy Brian's mastermind. People paid like $45,000 to be there. And the guy in front of me spoke. And it's funny because he used to be one of my students, and now he's this really well-known copywriter, and his stuff is so aggressive and so outrageous and so, it's so scammy. And he basically says, yeah, now with Facebook, you got to water down all your stuff. And I'm like, no, if anything, now say what you want about some of these big companies, but at least they're like, we don't want to send our people there to these disgusting sales letters because it's all BS. So I actually think it's the right way. If you're marketing the right way, you shouldn't be scared of your site getting banned. You say, bring it on. Like, you want to audit my page? Go for it. I got nothing to hide. I'm not making up stuff. So find the pages you like and model. Ken said you actually asked me what would make it a no-brainer. Yeah, it is funny that we're going off a little tangent for a minute because this is important. As you're creating programs and you're not sure, is this going to be a no-brainer? The best way is to actually get on the phone with people who are your potential customers. So when creating this program, it's funny that Ken just said that. Ken Reedy is a guy I've known since high school, and he runs a nonprofit. Ken's come into my world. I taught his amazing adults with developmental disabilities a whole day in entrepreneurship, and I love them. And as I was thinking of this concept of the second act, Ken was one of the guys I thought of. I'm like, he would be great, because Ken once asked me maybe 6 months ago, he's like, I'm thinking of doing a podcast and doing some stuff. What do you think? And I'm like, there's so many people like Ken who have such a big heart, who are so talented, who could do so much too with entrepreneurship. I should create a course just for them. And I messaged Ken. I said, can I just get on the phone with you just for 10 minutes? I just want to run things by you. And that was one of the first things I asked him. I said, I'm going to create this thing called Second Act Bootcamp. What would make it a no-brainer? And he's the one who said, everyone talks about here's where to start and creating a product. He's like, I would like to know the start before the start. Like, take it all the way back to the starting line. And that's why I even called it the start before the start. It was the words he said. And that's why I think this program is resonating, is because I'm creating it for Ken and you. So actually getting off the screen And getting in the real world and talking to people is one of the best things you can do. It can point you in the right direction, and sometimes it can point you in a direction where, maybe I shouldn't go. I was at the library a couple of months ago, and I was building out a nutrition program, which I still might do, and I saw one of my friends, and she's also in her early 50s, 3 kids, very wealthy. We're chatting. She said, "Oh, what are you up to?" I said, "Oh, I'm working on this nutrition program." Blah, blah. And then the question she started asking me, I'm just like, "Ooh, maybe I don't want to be in this world." It was weird. It kind of put me in I think there was actually a disconnect between what I was doing and what the market really wants, because she would have been my target market. So actually talking to people is so valuable, because you get to hear their voice or their inflection, and that's when the good stuff really comes out. And using their words is so valuable. So coming back to that, okay, getting off that little tangent for a second, when it comes to writing a sales letter, and you're like, I don't want to write copy, I don't have time for this, I don't have time to learn this. AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting as well. At least it can give you first drafts. But if in doubt, do a short video with a few testimonials. That can work. That can work really well. And a homemade video is fine. Hey, it's Ken, and I've been teaching this thing about, I've done public speaking for X number of years and blah, blah, blah. I'm putting together a course, and just saying right into your phone, that's going to be this, and we're going to go through this program, and we're running it as a beta. If you'd like to jump in, here you go, here's a link below, and then a couple testimonials and the add to cart button. Simple, wholesome, let's go. And you'd be surprised how well something like that can work, especially if you're comfortable on camera. And even if you're not, then use it to your advantage. Hey, it's Jen. I'm recording this camera, and I'm actually a little nervous to do it on camera, because I'm not used to doing this, but I'm just getting out of my comfort zone and forget it, because I really want to teach this other thing. People will be like, I like that person. They're being open and honest. Versus how to make the best pottery in 3 weeks, guaranteed. Just stop treating people like idiots. Ladies and gentlemen, who wants a bonus? Who wants a bonus? So, I did this training in one of my courses. It was a pretty expensive one. It was a $2,000 one called MCX. I did a 90-minute, actually it was an hour 25 minutes of breaking it down step by step, bullet point by bullet point of my system for writing a sales copy letter. I can't do it in this course because it's going to take too long. But if you're in Backstage Pass, I just uploaded it right before this, so it's in there. I promise you, it's going to help you write a sales letter. If you want to write a sales letter, it's my exact step-by-step template. It's taken me 20-something years to kind of figure it out, but it's exactly how I do it. Basically, what I've just been teaching you, but breaking it down step by step, if that's something you're interested. So if you're in Backstage Pass, another insight. If you have not, join it just for this, because I guarantee it's going to make you more sales. But anyway, it's in there already. Once this class ends, go into the dashboard and you'll see it. I think I called it bonus number 7 or 8. It's like the sales letter template. So that whole training is already uploaded, and the transcription. RyanLee.com/backstage. You're welcome. Next. Traffic. Feels good to give, ladies and gentlemen. It feels good to give. So growth with traffic. I've talked about ads, and if you're running ads, it really is the way to scale. Like, this is a little screenshot. I just took this morning. This is the first time I'm running ads in years. Like I said, I was nervous to get back in and do it myself, but I wanted to show you that if I'm going to teach it I got to do it again. So the ads. So this is one I'm running. This is the one that's winning so far. It's the short video. It's the actual video I took from the landing page, and I just put it in a Facebook ad. And right now, the purchase ROAS, means return on ad spends, means for every dollar I've spent, I'm getting back $2.30. So that's it's going to sound arrogant to say that's really good, but that's really good, especially out of the gate for a digital product. I think it's working because I'm very targeted in who I'm going for. I'm going for people like Second Act. It's different. It's unique. Right? There's no one else kind of talking to us in this way, especially with a reference to like Duran Duran. Like we're just it's unique in the market. But the way to scale it is to now grow the ad. Like once I can't stress this enough. If you're doing paid ads and you get a winning ad, you're off to the races. And Travis Spiegel, who ran the My Peeps course with me, had this great quote. He said, you test until it works, and then you scale until it doesn't. So at the beginning, I was at like a 0.3 ROAS, meaning for every dollar I spent, I was getting back 30 cents. But I had patience, and I tested a few more things, and it went up to 75 cents, to $1, to $1.50, now it's at $2.30. So now, if I'm spending a few $100s a day, you slowly increase it. And you keep trying and testing, and you test with different ads and different creatives. And now I'll do an image, and I'll test a meme, and I'll test just copy, and I'll test a different video. And you try different things. And if it's working, you keep going. And that's how my most successful companies have gone. You start with something, and then you just keep going. It's simple. It could start with one ad and one offer. But it's why we also spend so much time on the strategy, because if you don't have the right thing, you won't get that return. And I truly believe that's why it's working so well. It's not because I'm the most charming man in the world, right? Or the most handsome, or the most brilliant. It's because I've done all the things leading up to this that is exactly what I've been teaching you. The strategy-wise, the brand, the positioning, the hooks, the differentiation, the voice, the vibe, all the naming, all of that is why I can come out of the gate and be profitable, which is really, really hard to do. Most people can't. But I'm giving you the strategy so that you can do the same in your market. It doesn't mean you create the same thing, calling it, third act fitness, whatever you're going to do. I know some of you are going to copy me, but that's fine. Bring it. But that's how you get there, because you're taking all the proper steps to give yourself the best chance of success. So I want to show that as a teaching point. And then you do more creatives, and then you slowly start to increase your budget by like 5% to 10% at a time. I made the mistake once with one of my nutrition companies was starting to scale, and we were spending, I was spending like $3,000 a day, and I'm like, oh man, it's working. Double it. Let's go $6,000 a day. And even my video buyer was like, oh, I don't think we should, because what happens sometimes, depends on the platform, but some platforms like Meta, well, they're going to want to spend your extra $3,000 quickly, so it might not be for the best customers, and you might actually end up starting losing money. So you've got to do it small, and you've got to have patience with it. You could start at 20 a day. It's working, go to 25 a day, go to 30, go to 50. Before you know it, your 20 a day could be 500 a day and spend, or 1,000 a day, and one sale a day can go to 100 sales a day. That's the secret of scaling. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. But I had to show you it, because I want to show you, like if I'm going to show you how to grow this, if you want to, you can. You might say, Ryan, I have no desire to do this. I just want to do a couple of YouTube videos, or I want to do a podcast or get interviewed, or I want to just do Instagram posts or some short little reel videos, and that's it, and sell a front-end product, sell 1 or 2 a day. This is kind of second act. That's cool. I'm not judging. I'm not saying If you're not growing, you're dying. Go for it. Do what makes you happy. That's the thing. Like, that's the whole thing of this. We're all going to die one day, so just enjoy it. Do what's comfortable for you and what makes you happy. But I want to show you there is a path to growth if you want. So that's through traffic, right? We talked about conversion, and now we're moving over to traffic, and then more offers. Talked about this in the class all about creating products. I like the power of a live cohort. I've been testing different products over the years. A live cohort group works really, really well. First, you get paid before you create. So, hey, I'm going to do a 6-week course on how to grow your dry cleaning business. I'm doing a 4-week live training on how to grow your dry cleaning business. It's $500 for the 4-week live program. They pay you now for the course, even though you haven't delivered it yet. It's pretty cool. You have to deliver it, of course, but you're getting paid to create. It's like the old, was it Wimpy? I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Am I showing my age or what? These random references. Hopefully you get that reference. But now you might say, well Ryan, what if I commit to do this 4-week course and I charge $500 and I only get one person? Then you either create it and you have something recorded and that you could sell later, or you give the person a refund, say, I'm really sorry, but we're not going through with it. That's it. Not the end of the world. Or you shift. And I did that. I was going to launch one course where it was like how to create multiple brands. It was not going well. I could just tell. The more products you create and the more email you send, you'll know if something's working often within 5 minutes. You'll hit send, and if you usually get 20 orders and you get none, you're like, okay, something's wrong. So I knew, and I gave it 24, 48 hours. I'm like, this thing is not working. So I shifted quickly to a different course. And I told the people in there, you can either come to the new course, I'll give you that for free, or you get a refund. And every single person went with me and said, hey, I appreciate you, I trust you, I know you're going to deliver, so we'll go into the new course. And the new course ended up making more than most of my other courses. So you don't have to do it, or you can do it and get a recording, or you can shift and pivot. But one thing's for sure, your life is not coming to an end if you do it and if it doesn't work. Yeah, Lonnie was it. She bought that one. So the biggest benefit, and I just wrote an email about this, the biggest benefit of doing a program like this is it has the built-in scarcity. There's an open and a close. And the number one reason why people don't buy, not the number one, I don't have proof, but from what I've seen, a big, big reason people don't buy is because they don't have to. They could buy later. How many times do you come across something or a program and it's always open, and you're like, all right, that's cool, but I'll come back tomorrow, I'll come back later. And you forget, you get distracted, and you probably don't buy it. So you don't want to do fake countdown clocks and all of the fake scarcity. Or it's a digital program. There's only 3 left. What? It's digital. Maybe it's only 3 left. I also don't do the games where it's like the first 10 people buy it for $20, the next 10 buy it for $30. I don't know. It's a little tricky. I'd rather just say, here's our live program like this. We started on this date. We're ending on this date. If you want to participate, come in. And if you miss it, you miss it. Just like, hey, the Rolling Stones concert is next week. If you go in 2 weeks, the stadium's going to be empty because you missed it. So you give people a reason to buy now. And open, close, and launches always sell more than something that just sits out there at all times. There's more work, right? It's more work, it's more effort, but the result usually pays for itself. So I like open, close. I really do. It also gives you real-time feedback, so you can improve, you can refine. Like this, the amount of feedback I'm getting has been incredible. And it's also why I had a really good outline of this program, the 9 days, but I shifted a little bit. I saw where people were. I was getting a good feel. And I'm like, okay, let me spend a little less time in this one thing, which I thought would be important, and let me move over to here. And I think that's why it feels organic, because it does shift a little bit, and that's fine. It's fine. It goes better. And then if you want to run it again, it would be even tighter the next time through. And then again, and then you can add things to it, like where I had My Peeps, and then My Peeps 2, we added a couple new live trainings to it. We still had the core course the same. And if it works really well, then maybe that becomes your new flagship. Either your front-end flagship or your back-end flagship. This program that you're in here live, for those of you watching right now, this is likely going to be my new flagship. So a 9-day program where I didn't know if it would be. I thought maybe it would be. Or it could be the back-end flagship. I could easily sell this for $300 or $500 or even $1,000. I'm not going to sell for $1,000. I could, but I'm not going to. So it's probably going to be, if it's a back-end, it's probably going to be $300. But I'm not sure. I know it's going to be at least $99. Which, by the way, is why you want to get the Backstage Pass now, because it's never going to be a lower price. There you go, RyanLee.com/backstage. But with open close, like, people know if they're watching this now, this is coming down. If you're doing a live course and it ends at a certain time, they know if they're not in, they're going to miss it. So, and it works, then you make it an evergreen, potentially front or potentially back flagship. Okay. Now, how do we get more sales? Payment plans. Payment plans can work really, really well. What's interesting, and maybe because of the economy, payment plans used to be, depending on the product price, for me, it would make up maybe 20% of sales. So if I sold 100, 80 would do full pay, 20 would do payment plans. Different markets, people might have different numbers. The last 2 I launched were actually almost evenly split, 50-50, which was surprising. And I wonder if it's because maybe some people were feeling a little bit of a financial pinch, but you get a lot more people in because you're able to lower the price and help more people. Now, what happens if someone defaults on the payment, depending on the system you use? Like, I use Kajabi. If someone doesn't make all, so this was I don't have my glasses, I can't read. I think it was 4 monthly payments. If they defaulted on it, they automatically lose access to the program. Some programs don't do that, right? They just give you access. And if you email someone the program, or if you put it in Google Drive, you can't take away access, unless you did it like each link at a time. But I also don't worry about it. You know, I've seen some really aggressive marketers, if someone defaults, because it is a payment plan, right? This isn't a membership where they could do 2 payments and cancel. They're legally supposed to fulfill their obligation because you gave them access to the program. But not everyone does. Maybe they had a bad, they went over the limit on their credit card, or maybe their credit card got stolen, or maybe they did just cancel. But I don't chase them down. I don't. It happens. You have to just kind of build that into your numbers, knowing that not every single person is going to make all 4 payments, and be okay with that, and not stress about it, and not say, oh, if you don't pay, I'm calling a collections agency. I don't know. I don't want to put that energy out to the world. I try to look at it with empathy and say, okay, maybe they're going through a really tough time, or maybe they're having financial issues, or maybe they just lost their job. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And you'd be surprised by just doing that, how many people will come back and say, you know what, I changed my credit card, got stolen, can I get back on the payment plan? Like, absolutely. But you don't forget either. So I can see if someone cancels. Like, it's one thing if their credit card declined. It's another thing if they physically go in and say, okay, hey, I'm doing 4 payments, and after 1 they cancel. I could see that. And then if they come down the road and say, oh, I want to do this with you, or can I do a coaching call? And I'll look, I'll say, well, you kind of, negged on this first thing, so what's the story there? And that's where you have to use your own judgment. But and Rich, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, and if you guys know, if you've ever bought some of my products and you didn't fulfill the payment, I don't chase you down. Usually your software will have a few automatic follow-ups. Hey, you could update the credit card here, last chance, and it does it. But I'm not chasing people. I wouldn't want to be chased. So just assume they're going to make 1 or 2 payments, and everything above that is gravy. But it does give you more overall income. So just think about offering that. And it's recurring revenue. I know it's different because it's a payment that they kind of owe. So it depends how you run your books, but it still is recurring. You get 100 people at $80 a month. That's what, $8,000 a month for the next 4 months for a product you already sold. That's not bad. I want to spend a few minutes on growth. As you're growing, if you want to start bringing on people, because we will, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, so I'll go through this not in too much detail, but a little bit. So if you want to build, and I've come up with this term, this one-person empire, you want to have a team. Right? You want to have some people that you can trust, but not necessarily full-time. Like the whole key to this business, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And it's reducing your bloat. And this is the first time since I sold my nutrition company a year and a half ago. It's been now a year and a half. I've had no full-time employees. And it's the first time I've had no full-time employees for over 20 years. And I was nervous. I was nervous because I'm like, man, I got to do this all myself. What am I going to do? How am I going to run all this? But when you create good systems, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And you can hire people to help out, a freelance team. So, coming back a few sessions ago, the 3-hour day, right? Grow, write, bank. So we have to look at how can people help fill the gap in some of these 3 buckets. How can I get help and assistance if I don't want to do this all myself? But I really suggest full-time employees is like the last thing you need. For this type of business, you really don't. Everything can be done now. It's the gig economy. So here are things you could potentially outsource. Graphic design, tech, sales copy, media buying, support, and back office stuff. Depends on your skills. But there's A players, there's B players, and there's agencies. And this is where people don't know the difference. The A players are going to be more expensive. They're higher quality. That's when you start a project and you want to bring on someone who's like really good and you're going to pay more, right? The B players are people who are going to be more affordable, maybe lower quality overall, but I'll show you some roles that they can fill. So for graphic design, with my last site, I wanted the testimonials to really look good. So I had a designer come up with the concept. Josh Corporal, helped design the whole site and the look. So graphic design for that, he was more expensive, but it was more conceptual. Came up with the colors and the font and all of that stuff. With the book, that it's temporarily on hold. I just paused it because I wanted to focus on second act for a little bit. But I had a professional graphic designer. This was around $1,000 to get this design done. But it's much different than if I hired a B-level designer on Fiverr. They're not going to get this look. So you're going to pay more for big concept stuff, and the B person can have stuff that's there's replicatable tasks. So for example, when I did my event Momentum Rocks, I would basically on Fiverr give them the image of the person, and they just had the same kind of look and background. And for $5, they took the image, they put it on the thing, they added the text, and it was done. It was done. But I didn't need to pay my designer $300 per image because it wasn't all. I didn't need it. This was a B-level project, and this is where people lose a lot of money. And yes, the message here: it's not what you make, it's not what you keep. Absolutely. I once had a guy working for me, and I said, "Can you just get a little intro video done, like a little 10-second one of those?" And on Fiverr, you can get them for like $10. They're already done. You just add your text. And it took him a week, and he hired a professional graphic, and it was like a 600. I'm like, what are you doing? It's a 5-second thing for one video. It should have been $10. Why'd you spend 600? And to make 600 back, how much more do you need to sell to make that? The top line revenue means nothing. Everyone's showing these awards with 8 commas and all that. Hey, I did $1 million in sales. Who cares? It doesn't mean it. What you make. I've had 2 businesses that have done 7 figures in monthly revenue. I didn't put 7 figures in profit in my pocket every month. There's a difference. So be careful who you listen to. Because you can't go to the bank and say, well, we did 3, I'm going to pay my mortgage. We did $800,000 last month. Well, how much do you make? Well, $50,000. Well, what? Like, it's a difference. An A programmer, custom coding. So when I had this for Shopify, I had this all custom made. And it was more expensive. Versus a B coder who, with Kajabi, with the last version of my site, I had some custom fonts and I wanted someone to change the fonts. And that's a $15 gig. You don't need to pay a $200 an hour programmer for a $15 gig. Just like you don't need to pay a $150 an hour graphic designer just to repeat some images. Be careful with agencies. Check references. Really check references. And if they pull the old, I can't share because everyone's an NDA, blah, 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 do not sign with them. They're full of crap, especially ones, we'll run the Facebook ads for you, we'll do all this stuff. If they won't give you people, and the people won't stand up publicly and step up for them, and they won't give you anyone, do not sign with them. You've been warned. You have been warned, my friend. Monthly only, don't sign long contracts with any agency. Always have an out. And there are some agencies now that are pretty interesting. They do these flat rate things. So for $4.99, you get unlimited graphics. There are things with editing, with text. So there's some really cool things. So here's my little checklist. I went over this the other day, but I want to go through it in a little bit more detail. If you're going to hire someone, first thing you do is check their reviews. So if you're going on a marketplace like Fiverr or Freelancer, whatever it's going to be, check their reviews. I would message at least 5 different people, not just one. Message the 5. Here's what I'm looking for. Send the exact same message to all 5 of them. Check their responsiveness. So this was a recent task I did. This guy, Jerry, thank you so much. I will do great work for you. Paid. And then just, you could see how he was really, really quick with it. Be specific. So whenever you work with a freelancer, the less flexibility you give them, the better, because everyone's going to have different ideas of what it is they want. So if you want graphic design, here's the image I really like. Can you do it like this, but instead of a black background, make it blue, and maybe use, instead of this font, maybe use an Arial font, and maybe just highlight this, and then let them do their thing. But if you say, can you create a thumbnail for me, they can give you something you don't like at all. Or can you create this page? You're like, well, what do you want it to look like? And then that's when you get into trouble. So be really, really specific when working with freelancers, especially on marketplaces. Then if the price, if it's affordable, hire more than one. So I'll do graphics, or especially if I'm working with someone new. I had one where I had someone I wanted them to do a little bit of writing up of summaries, and I hired like 4 or 5. Just to see. Check their responsiveness, check the quality of their work, especially if it's a $10 gig and you think you need someone who's going to be doing things often for you. It's worth investing an extra $100 now to find the diamond in the rough. It is. Don't get cheap here. You want someone who's going to be reliable. Give the best person, the most responsive, more work. So you start with a small task. Hey, can you do this graphic thing? Can you do this? Great. Here's another job. They responded. Excellent. Now you do more. The first full person I had hired her to originally do a transcription. She did it great. I gave her another thing, and then I ended up hiring her full-time. She was with me for like 14 years. All started with one transcription. And here's a bonus. Be nice. The people who, especially from other countries, wherever you're, like if the UK or United States, and you're working with someone overseas, maybe you're working with someone from the Philippines, do not be rude and demanding. Like they're not your slave. They're a human being. They're husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, and treating them rude, there's no need to ever treat them rude and treat them like robots. So be nice, be supportive, get them excited about what you're doing, especially if you start bringing them on for more tasks. Hey, I'm creating this company. We're going to help 50 people, whatever, live a happier life. Are you with me? And they're like, oh, yes, I'm in. They want to be part of work that's good, too. You'd be shocked how many of these people I've worked with, and they'll say, Ryan, you are so nice. You're so kind. I'm like, well, isn't it? And they're like, most people are so mean to us. And giving little bonuses. There was one guy that was working for me, and it was his wife's birthday. So I PayPal'd him $50. I said, happy birthday to your wife. You would have thought I paid for his house. He was so grateful and so loyal. He still works with me. So just be nice. And especially for people from other countries where the dollar or whatever your denomination goes further, give them a little, hey, they did a great job, throw them another $10. It may not mean a lot to you, but it means a lot to them. So be really nice. So those are growth strategies. Here are some big lessons I've learned. I'm just going to fire hose this baby at you. And if you can, before I even start fire hosing, if you could take 1 minute, this is the last Facebook post, the last thing, final comments, because we got a little more to do here, but of how you've liked this program, if you recommend it to other people, if this was worth your investment and your time, anything you want to share, just saying, man, this course, just in your own words, doesn't have to sound like a testimonial. Maybe it was better than you expected, like you expected something, and by the end, you were just blown away, and you've got your blueprint now to create your own business. Whatever you want, use your own words, but I'd really appreciate it. RyanLee.com/FB. So here are big lessons. Ready? And thank you all for leaving feedback. Number one, it's on your shoulders. No one's going to do it for you. No one's looking out for you as well as you are. So you just got to say, I got this. You got to wake up every day. Just like I say to my son before every match, or my daughters before every match or game, you got this. Like, go. And knowing that it's on you, and that's why I've really focused this whole course on this idea of the simple flywheel, and one page, and one person, and a landing page, and a cart, and something that you could do by yourself, and simple traffic strategies. Because if you rely on other people, unfortunately, a lot of the time they're going to disappoint you. It stinks. I've given so much. I've done so many free calls for friends and colleagues and friends of colleagues, and if I ever ask for anything, which I never do, but if I ever do, they often say no anyway, or ignore me. So I'm like, I learned long ago, I'm like, that's cool. I'm going to do things to help and be nice, but I'm not expecting anything in return, and I'm going to do me. I'm going to get my traffic. I'm going to run my ads. I'm going to build my site. I'm not going to rely on anyone else. And that's why you got to keep this stuff simple. Which leads me to, should you have partners? So I've had, I think, 6 different partnerships, and they all can work, but I would say, in general, I do not recommend it. Especially if you're not matched up. So if you're more of a starter and you love the idea and getting it going and, oh my God, we're going to do this and we're going to change the world, and they're also a starter, and you're both really excited, but you don't really have good systems or implementation stuff, then it's going to have a good start and then it's going to fall apart. Same thing with the other side. If you're both really good back end and strategy, but you're not really like the starter or the idea, you're never actually going to get off the ground. And what's really fascinating with partnerships, because I've seen the trends with all of them, they either go really well from the start and everything's good at the beginning, but if it keeps growing, the resentment comes in because one partner is going to feel like they're doing more of the work. And it's usually the marketer or the front end, usually. And the other person's going to be like, well, what are you talking about? It was my idea. And that causes a lot of friction. Or the opposite, it doesn't work, and then they're snipping at you're snipping at each other. Well, it didn't work because of you, and you start pointing fingers. Do you know how many... Every internet marketing partnership I've known, everyone, without exception, has failed. It's all fallen apart. And most of them end in lawsuits. I've never been involved in a lawsuit with a partner. They've all ended friendly, on good terms. There's one who's probably not that happy with me, but everyone else has been good. But I suggest it's better to be the owner and then hire people versus having a partner. In this type of business that we're talking about during the Second Act Bootcamp, you don't really need a partner. You can do this yourself, and I suggest you do. Bring on freelancers, but you don't need a 50-50, especially a 50-50 partner. Because then there's also what happens is, you have to think. Because I've created partnerships, and you have to have the partnership agreement. And what happens if your partner passes away, and now their spouse is your partner? What happens to that? Are they running the business with you? Things you have to think of. You're better off doing projects. I did My Peeps with Travis, but we didn't start a company together. We did a product. I've done a product with Mary Agnes. I've done products with different people, but I didn't do full partnerships, and I don't do partnerships anymore. The last partnership I have is my bone broth company, and I'm actually going to exit that soon, and that's my last one, and I'm never having another partnership again. I won't have one. I'm going to own the company. Another little takeaway here. Be okay existing in your little corner of the market and owning that spot. Don't obsess over what everyone else is doing. Don't fall into the FOMO. I have been guilty of it, and I've struggled with that because I feel like, and you might feel this way, that especially as we start getting older, sometimes you have the little regret. And I'm like, man, if I would have just stuck with this one thing, like if I would have just done what I taught Jeff Cavaliere to do, when I told Jeff just stick with YouTube, if I would have done that, I'd probably have 30 million viewers, people by now. But you can't live in regret. You can't live in regret with other people surpassing you. And I've had students surpass me. And I used to get asked to speak at all the big events. But I don't anymore because I just kind of withdrew from that world. And it took me a while to be okay with that, saying, I don't need to be famous and all this stuff. Like, I'm okay. Especially as we're getting older and we don't really care anymore. And you want to focus more on your health and your family and your close friends. So not getting sucked into that world of what else is that, what are they doing? And oh my God, they're speaking at that event and why aren't I there? And then you're bitter and you're angry. Let all that stuff go. I'm telling you, again, from experience, just do you. Enjoy your life. Create the income. Do business and work that matters. And don't watch what everyone else is doing. Just stay in your lane and focus on your people and your customers and your tribe. Not getting sidetracked with all that stuff. It's also, with that being said, it's also okay to pivot, right? We've talked about pivoting. That not everyone's watching every single move you do. You could try things. You could change. You can shift. You can. You're not stuck just because you're starting something now and it doesn't work. Don't feel guilty about changing. Don't feel like now I have to do this for the next 6 years or 8 years because this is what everyone knows me for and I can't shift. They don't care. If you're teaching yoga now and you're doing it online and you try it for 6 months or a year and it's just not working and you're not enjoying it and now you want to do something else, then do something else. You're good. You're good. You got my permission. You got permission from everyone else here. You're good. Go for it. We're not going to judge you. I promise. We got our own stuff to worry about. I'm not worried if you're not teaching yoga anymore. I will survive and you'll survive. Speaking of surviving, you can see these were just random thoughts that came to my head. Don't rely on affiliates. It comes back to the first takeaway of you got to do this yourself. the idea that everyone else is going to promote for me. It's cool if they promote for you, but the minute they stop, you're in trouble if you're not getting your own traffic. Do not rely on affiliates. Do not rely on anyone else. This is your job. And your main job is to really market, is to get attention, is to bring people in and then help them on the back. But don't rely on affiliates or anyone else. I know I talk a lot about speed and moving fast and sprinting, and there's a lot of validity behind it, like moving quick and shifting and pivoting and trying things and throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. But there's also the value of patience. It's not giving up so quickly that you launch something and like 4 minutes later you're switching, especially when it comes to paid traffic. If I would have quit the minute because my ads weren't working for the first few days, I wouldn't have said, oh my God, there is a pulse here, and now I can actually scale this thing. So being patient, saying, I'm going to take my time with this, but not to the point of insanity, not to the point of you've done everything and it's still not working, and you have this sunk cost bias, and you won't give it up. You're like, screw it, I'm not giving up. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to push through. You can't outmarket a bad idea. And sometimes your idea is just not very good. And after a while, if it's not working and you're trying everything, you're trying different hooks and pricing, okay, you gave it some time, then you can move on. But give it some time. When you have an offer that works, and you have a front end that works, every good offer eventually goes stale. They all do. Very few people are in the market right now and buying Tae Bo or the Jane Fonda workout. They had its day in the sun. Because people, and I've mentioned this throughout the class, people want something that's new. They want the latest. So if you create a winner, know that eventually it's going to get stale. And you're going to have to reinvent and create something new, or a shift or an offshoot or something. But you can't just think, okay, I'm just going to create one thing and I'm with it forever. Even a membership site, eventually they go stale too. So know that if it's working, great, ride that baby. But know that something will have to change eventually. Every offer eventually goes stale. Listen to your customers, but not too closely, because they don't often know what they want. If I listened only to my customers and to my members, I would never have created this program. Because there's no one who said, Ryan, I would love for you to create something for like people, during their second act and a full all-in-one soup to nuts business thing. So no one asked for that. So I wouldn't have created it. So you could still innovate and try new things and get people excited about it. Hey guys, I'm trying this new second act program. It's 9 days, we're gonna go. Who's in? That's where you get your creativity and your energy, and that's why also all this other marketing leading up to it is important. Getting people on say, let's try this together. You're in it together. You're not creating something and just selling it to them. I'm building this, and you're listening. You're listening to their words, but you're not only listening to them. Even with my nutrition company, because everyone had their own idea.